You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 567, Spirit Folk.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I am Charlene Schmidt, sitting in for Norman Lau. Each week on Mission Log, we go down to the pub for a pint, meet the locals, and have a deep discussion about the morals, meanings, and messages in Star Trek, and ask ourselves if they stand the test of time, or if they're just the work of some black magic.
This week, Spirit Folk, the one where we can't get enough of the good folks in Fairhaven, but they're pretty sure that they've had enough of us. All right, Char, welcome back to the show. You brought this upon yourself because we covered Fairhaven not that long ago, it seems.
It really wasn't. It was maybe not even a few weeks ago.
Yeah, like 6 weeks. So, if that is not even episode 0, it's just 5 episodes. So yeah,
you know what that means, John?
What does that mean?
Tom was ahead of schedule.
He was. He said 6 or 7 weeks to fix it.
I've got thoughts.
Okay. He's desperate to get back into Fairhaven. That's your thought.
Apparently everybody wants to get back to Fairhaven so much.
We can't stand our lives anymore. Just take us into Fairhaven. Well, it's good to have you back, Char. And, of course, you have been working very hard. It's really wrapped up, for the most part, with the occasional special here and there. But Mission Log Prodigy, thank you so much for the hard work that you and everybody else, Marina, put into that show. So good. What an awesome Star Trek series to cover anyway.
Oh, for real, though. Yeah, and thank you for giving me and Marina the privilege of covering it, because we had nothing but a good time. Great. And it was a great process, and I do hope that eventually we can come back with some sort of Prodigy-related content going forward, even though we're done with Season 2 proper. Who knows? We just might get that news of a season or a movie or something. I'm not giving up.
No, nobody should give up. It's Star Trek. People come back. Series
all the time.
All the time, exactly. And we don't want to spoil it here, although I'm not sure exactly when this will come out, lined up with what you just did, but you have a little special crossover with Genealogy. So everybody should pay attention to that. Take a look at missionlogpodcast.com and just take a look at the feed, and you'll see Char pop up on Genealogy as they wrap up Wrangler, Gene's Lost show. So if you want to know what the Lost Gene Roddenberry series is, Char can tell you, Earl can tell you, and Ashley can tell you, and you can learn all about it at Genealogy.
Yeah,
so,
I got to see it.
All right. That's too cool. Well, why don't you tell everybody where they can reach us?
Certainly. We would love to hear from you. Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek. Find us on Facebook at Mission Log Pod and Threads at Roddenberry Podcasts. Conversation always continues in the Mission Log Discord with near-daily live events and 24/7 chat about the topics you love. That is no joke either. That party is hopping all the time. Get your invitation to our private server by joining patreon.com/missionlog. That's what gets you in. And while you're at it, one of the most important ways to help the podcast you love is to leave that all-important 5-star rating and review, whether it's Apple or your favorite podcast platform. We don't care. If you would just do that, we'd really appreciate that. And remember, your comments could be used on the show, so say nice things.
Yeah, as you should. Say nice things about people.
Constructive criticism is fine. Just
there you go.
Keyboard diarrhea, no thank you. And now, here's John Champion with this week's trivia.
Okay, Spirit Folk is an episode written by Brian Fuller, and the entire credit goes to Brian Fuller here. He is firmly entrenched at this point in Voyager, and the most recent credit of his that we discussed was on One Small Step, and he actually shared the teleplay duties with 3 other credited writers on that one. This was directed by David Livingston. I mean, come on, still the longest-serving, most credited Star Trek director of them all. Returning veteran here, and the last episode of his that we discussed was Alice. Now, this episode was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Music Composition. That would be Jay Chataway's work. The winner that year, though, was for Fallen Angel, which was an episode of Xena Warrior Princess, and that was picked up by Joseph LaDuca. Now, we have a couple of literary mentions in this episode, and I wanted to pinpoint those here. There is The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser. Now, the first 3 chapters of that epic poem were published in 1590, with a follow-up 3 chapters in 1596, and apparently it was intended as 12 chapters. So what we have today, if it was indeed finished, is half of the original intended text. It is an allegorical tale meant to praise Queen Elizabeth and tell fantastical tales of virtue and morals, and its historic importance is without question. This long, early, prominent English epic poem. Modern reviews range anywhere from calling it brilliant to trippy to the world's longest chastity belt. So
wow.
I know.
That's a range.
Did not expect that. Yeah. But there is another story mentioned here, and that is A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain, which was first published in 1889, and it is also undisputed as a great work of literary comedic importance here. Now, I personally love this book. My dad loved this book. He was a huge Mark Twain fan. And I have to admit, I know a bit more about this than The Fairy Queen. But I think my assessment here is correct. That the way A Connecticut Yankee skewers traditional roles in Arthurian England, it is the polar opposite of the book that Michael gives Janeway. Now, let's meet our guest stars. You won't be surprised that we've got a lot of return players who we met last time in Fairhaven a mere 6 episodes ago. Henriette Ivanans is back as Maggie, Richard Reel is back as Seamus, and of course, Fenton McKeon is back as Michael Sullivan. We do meet some new townsfolk, though. I want to point out 2 in particular. Ian Abercrombie plays Milo. He's the guy with the hair trigger on his firearm. Now, this Ian isn't new to Star Trek, though, because we last saw him not that long ago. He was one of the visiting aliens last season in Someone to Watch Over Me. And Fitzgerald is the holographic doctor. No, not our holographic doctor who is playing a priest, but rather the doctor who lives in the hologram of Fairhaven. That's Fitzgerald. And he is played by Ian Patrick Williams. And this Ian has appeared in everything from superhero movie to Married with Children to a recurring gig on Days of Our Lives. If you look earlier in his career, I especially love a couple of other Trek actor crossovers that he has. These are both movies that I remember very well. He was in the 1979 TV movie Dummy, starring LeVar Burton and guest actor Paul Sorvino. And in 1985, he appeared in one of my all-time favorite Jeffrey Combs projects, Reanimator.
Welcome to the Delta Quadrant. Just when you think deleting the wife has solved your problems, there's a whole new set of problems.
Prologue. Welcome back to the holodeck town of Fairhaven, where Tom is tearing down the road in an early 20th century automobile and promptly crashes into a stack of barrels. Seamus is there to offer his condolences to Tom's rich uncle who willed him the money for such an extravagance, for the price of a few pints, of course. When Tom commands the computer to repair the tire, Seamus catches this bit of magic and runs off to Sullivan's pub. Act 1. Seamus is a bit freaked out by what he saw and is convinced that Tom's powers are a bit of unholy magic. Not all the locals buy it. Dr. Fitzgerald and Michael Sullivan know Seamus's reputation for, shall we say, creative storytelling. But Seamus continues and shares a grim legend about a town that vanished because spirit folk lured the townspeople to the other world. That grabs the attention of a few of the locals, but the conversation quickly dies when Katie O'Clair, a.k.a. Janeway, enters and Michael eagerly escorts her to the bar for a cup of tea and a change of subject. In the mess hall, Harry replicates flowers for his date with Maggie O'Halloran, and B'Elanna grumbles about the technical strain from Fairhaven running non-stop. Tom sneaks onto the holodeck to cause a little mischief on Harry's date. He uses a pad to transform Maggie into a cow right as Harry leans in for a kiss. Harry is outraged, but he and Tom are called back to the bridge by Chakotay. What they don't know is that Seamus and another local, Milo, saw the whole thing. When Tom and Harry leave the holodeck, Milo and Seamus flee in terror, absolutely convinced that they have witnessed some dark magic. Act 2. The next morning, Father Mulligan, the Doctor's Fairhaven character, is in the middle of a sermon on community when Seamus and Milo interrupt, dragging in the cow that was once Maggie. They accuse Tom and Harry of witchcraft, and the Doctor insists that Maggie is fine. They've just witnessed a practical joke by the notorious prankster Tom Paris. Covering for Tom, the Doctor even says that he passed by Maggie at her flower stand that morning. They should go check and leave the cow. Sure enough, Seamus and Milo find Maggie with her flowers, but she's confused and disoriented. She remembers dreaming that she was wandering around town with a bell around her neck, but doesn't recall going to sleep. Milo and Seamus decide to have a wee taste to process the story, but at the pub, the townsfolk share more eerie stories. One man claims he saw Harry change the weather. A woman claims Katie conjured up a child who fell down a well. Another woman claims Father Mulligan disappeared into thin air after a sermon. Michael does his best to calm everyone down, insisting they act like civilized people when it comes to their new friends. Later, Michael confronts Katie, handing her a copy of the Fairy Queen poem and inferring that she has similarly mysterious origins. He asks where she goes, why he can't find her when she leaves Fairhaven. Janeway says the secrets she has kept for him were never about anything important. When Michael asks more, Janeway commands the computer to end the program. Act 3. Janeway wants some answers from Fairhaven's author, Tom. So he and Harry look into the program, discovering that the character's subroutines that prevent awareness of the outside world are offline. When they activate Michael in the hololab, he materializes, but he's very uneasy and doesn't understand where he is or what Tom and Harry are talking about. They try to calm him down and reset the offending algorithm in his program, but Michael is only playing along. He convinces them that everything is fine. Thinking they've fixed the issue with Michael, Tom and Harry transfer him back to Fairhaven and plan to reset every character in the program from the pub's control panel. But back in the program, in the church, Michael tells Dr. Fitzgerald about his experience in front of Tom and Harry and how they said they plan to make some changes to the town later. The townspeople, already suspicious, rally to defend themselves. Seamus leads the charge, suggesting everything from rifles to red thread as weapons against the spirit folk, and Michael tries to talk him away from getting violent. When Tom and Harry sneak into the pub to reset the program, the townsfolk ambush them, trapping them in a net and shooting the control panel. The damage disables the safety protocols, and the confusion just spooks the characters even more over Tom and Harry's insistence that they stop. Tom commands the program to freeze, but only 62% of the characters stop, leaving the rest to chase them down. The computer can't open an exit back to Voyager, and the mob successfully captures Tom and Harry. Act 4. Back in the real world, the crew debates their options. Janeway rejects using force, unwilling to risk her security team in armed conflict. Transporters can't lock onto Tom and Harry, and if they shut down the program, B'Elanna's suggestion, the program would be entirely erased. With Tuvok's suggestion, Janeway decides to send the Doctor in with pattern enhancers to retrieve them. In Fairhaven's church, though, Tom and Harry are at the center of an amateurish exorcism, and some people advocate for stringing them up on the lamppost. That is until Michael can step in and try to calm things down again. Enter the Doctor, proclaiming them all sinners. But the townsfolk don't trust him either and tie him up alongside the others. They notice the gear he's got, along with the pattern enhancers, and take those away too. Now linked into the holodeck itself, the Doctor is trapped as well. On the bridge, Tuvok tells Janeway the Doctor's program can't be isolated. Seamus continues interrogating the three captives, even attempting hypnosis, which actually works on the Doctor now that he's part of the program. Under the influence, the Doctor says there is no other world, but there is a starship, Voyager. Everyone in Fairhaven thinks it's nonsense, but Michael figures Katie is there. He demands to know how to get to her, and the hypnotized Doctor glances down at the mobile emitter in Michael's hand. When Tuvok beams it to the bridge upon activation, Janeway is stunned as Michael Sullivan materializes. Act 5. Janeway decides that her best option is to come clean about everything and try to explain the situation to Michael. As best she can, anyway. She says who she is, and she even tries to drop a little H.G. Wells on him. As they stroll the corridors, she tells him the Voyager crew are explorers who visit Fairhaven for the joy of discovery. He takes it all in, and honestly, he seems to get it, but their little tete-a-tete is cut short with news from the bridge. Tuvok reports that the townspeople are stacking kindling ready to burn Tom and Harry and somehow the Doctor, I guess, at the stake. Janeway rushes back into the holodeck with Michael, assuring the villagers that what they've seen is not magic, but technology, and that Voyager is just full of people who want to be their friends. Michael backs her up, pointing out that these visitors have helped Fairhaven in many ways, though, yeah, the thing with Maggie turning into a cow, kind of a mistake. Michael appeals to the spirit of friendship, and the townspeople calm down. The Fairhaven program will need to be shut down for now, for repairs, and B'Elanna expressly advises against running it all the time. Tom! But Janeway wants the characters' memories to be saved. Something about them being able to accept the Voyager crew the same way the Voyager crew have accepted all manner of other beings as friends. Who knows where that will lead? The crew take a last stroll through Fairhaven, and things are pretty well back to normal. Tom teases Seamus, Harry reconnects with Maggie, and Janeway has a gift for Michael, a copy of a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. And Michael teases Janeway in turn, now that he knows her real name, wondering if their familiarity renders her spirit charms powerless. Don't count on it. The end.
Fantastic recap, John. What do you say we go into the pub and get a pint and discuss everything that you just recapped?
I would want nothing more than to just go into a pub right now and have a pint to talk about this episode and any other Star Trek that anybody wants to talk about. Yeah. I'm a location geek, and I love this little section of the Universal backlot. It kind of looks the same. And I love the good choice of that old car. I'm going to get into that in just a moment. But it was a good prop, and Tom seems to be having fun. Like, it's a dynamic way to kick off the scene. But okay, I left this out of trivia. I wanted to save it and drop it here.
Okay.
I can't find documentation about it, like if I were to go to a call sheet or something like that. But I am pretty sure I did the right sleuthing here, and I'm pretty sure that Tom is driving a 1903 or 1904 Oldsmobile, judging by the shape of the body, the horn he has, the lanterns even, that are the headlights on this thing, and the logo that we see on the side. So, like, just where he's sitting, if you look right below that, there's kind of an oval and then like a little diamond-shaped thing in the middle of that, just under the seat. And that particular Oldsmobile, it was the last one that they made with a tiller to steer by.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not the last car in general made with a tiller, but those were pretty much on their way out by this time. But it was the last Oldsmobile made to steer by tiller.
Oh,
so,
how cool.
There you go.
Thanks for sleuthing. That's cool info.
No problem.
You mentioned the Tom was having fun. I dig the shaky cam footage because that kind of made it fun.
Yes.
It's a great way to open the episode. It maybe reflects that Tom is not that great of a driver, or maybe not as good as he thinks he is, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. And, we're back in Fairhaven, and I gotta say, if I were one of the locals, I would just be sick to death of this Seamus guy. He is the town beggar / drunk, and he's someone who just takes way more than he gives back. Is he not?
It's his only shtick. I mean, come on.
One trick pony, man.
He's sort of like Wimpy from the Popeye stories, but I think Wimpy had more charm. Well, it's not to say that Seamus doesn't have a certain level of charm, but it's the same thing.
Different level, though.
Yeah. I love Michael being sort of the one voice of reason in Fairhaven, and he drops that truth bomb that superstition is the religion of fools. I was like, ooh, wow, we're going to dig into something deep here. Okay, good.
Yeah. Go, Michael. I got a question for you, John.
Yeah.
Do you love it or hate it when someone in the episode quotes the episode title?
You know, I wondered why they did that. I find it annoying, but sometimes I want to stand up and give them a little golf clap. Just like, oh, look at you writers being so clever and dropping that in.
Yeah.
Did it jar you a bit?
Not for this one, no, but other times it is kind of cringy. Like, they're doing it just for the sake of doing that. And I think it works here just because Spirit Folk really is such a big element of the story.
And it is this kind of a generic term here. Yeah. So at least is saying, those are spirit folk. Like, okay, it's just we're generally speaking about these things that we don't understand. It would be another thing if, say, you were watching classic Trek and, they find themselves in, 1939 New York, and one of them leans over to the other and says, it looks like we're in a city on the edge of forever. You'd be like, no. You'd be like, no, don't quote the title here.
No.
That's too specific and too poetic. Yeah.
Even the conscience of the king straddled that line.
Yes, right. That's very true. Now, Seamus dismisses the old line that a stranger is a friend you haven't met yet. He's just like, nah, he's not in with that. But we'll circle back to that when we get to the morals, meanings, messages, I think.
Yes, we must. I could not help but notice that Janeway sports a variation of the bun of steel in this episode, at least while she's in Fairhaven. Like, she just can't escape it.
No, the classics are hard to kill. Yeah.
I love it. And speaking of Fairhaven, it is sweet to see the sparks fly between Janeway and Michael Sullivan.
They got chemistry. That's undeniable.
You can see that their relationship has gotten closer since Fairhaven. It's nice to show that.
Yeah. It's been 6 weeks, so we know that she's maybe been dropping by every now and then.
Right. We don't know exactly how long, because it took Tom a while to get Fairhaven back. Right. But, again, more for the discussion. I've got thoughts and theories.
Okay, fair. Now, in the pub, Michael, he just whips out this full tea service right from under the bar. And I have a big question. What was keeping the water hot? It's just on a tray. It's the full tea service with a kettle. How? You don't just have that sitting there. No, you got to make it.
Is there some sort of heating element there? Or is he serving her cold tea?
It's spirit tea. It's black magic tea. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay, now I have another bit of in-universe logic to try to figure out. All right.
Okay.
I thought that the replicator, the real replicator, multiple replicators, but there's one in the mess hall at least, couldn't be used for just frivolous stuff. So Harry's there replicating flowers. Why isn't Harry just replicating holographic flowers in the Fairhaven simulation? I bet there's a flower shop. He could just go down to the holographic flower shop, get the holographic flowers. What a weirdo.
I guess, is it because Maggie O'Halloran, doesn't she run the flower shop? And so if the flowers are for her, then it's kind of weird. But nevertheless, I don't know. I think it goes, between story to story as to what you can do with which replicator and when. But... like, is he trying to show off that he has a date? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting out of that whole thing.
He's in the outfit, but he's going to get made fun of.
Well, yeah, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And if he had the good sense to replicate anywhere else, he would not have had to have smooched old Bossy, because Tom would have been none the wiser.
Yes.
Harry, don't do this to yourself, mate.
That was a self-own. Yeah.
Yeah. We, speaking of resources, that's another thing for the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I got a lot on that.
Okay. And look, I just got to say, whether Tom knows or doesn't know about the date, not cool. Just like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to show up and screw up Harry's holodate. Okay? It's embarrassing enough.
Seriously,
You know?
what is this
Yeah.
nonsense? Why is Tom such a jerk?
I know.
He's written as an absolute moron in the story, and Harry's not too far behind, unfortunately.
No, exactly.
Sad.
I am still very much in love with the Doctor playing the priest. Just going to town on this sermon. It is so perfect. You know, we just did Virtuoso not long ago, and to see anytime you take the Doctor and you feed his ego or put him on the podium, literally or figuratively, as we've done here, it's just great. When we end up with Michael confronting Katie, I have to wonder, like, there's always these interesting questions about how would this work if this were a real thing, with a person interacting with a computer program that runs the holodeck, right?
Yeah.
So in universe, does Janeway at that moment think that it's just part of the game? Like the computer is now switching up the script a bit to challenge her with a more unpredictable Michael Sullivan, until which point she can't take it anymore, you know? But would she just go like, oh, okay, well, this is what the computer's doing now. Or maybe this character is growing a bit. Like, that is a weird moment, you know?
Yeah. You can't really tell which, if it's either or both or what.
Yeah. But it is such a good scene, and I just love this pretense. It's Janeway and Michael sitting there, and he's trying to get the truth out of her to the point that she can't take it and ends the program.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, you mentioned their chemistry between the two actors, and I really feel like Kate Mulgrew was just genuinely in the moment. There are times that you can tell an actor's emotional recall, that they're in that moment, and all of that felt very real for a very artificial sci-fi construct of a scene, you know?
Yeah. Oh, man. And I genuinely thought that was going to be the moment Janeway was going to lead with the truth. And then I was disappointed that it didn't happen until a lot later. And I think maybe, to spoil like a small moral meaning or message, maybe she should have led with the truth, because this is obviously not a normal hologram situation.
That would have been interesting. Oh, man, and we're already doing the rewrite.
Yeah, sorry.
but that would have been a really interesting moment, because then it puts a lot more weight on Michael for the remainder of the show to be the voice of reason and to try to live with this knowledge in Fairhaven.
What does he do with that?
See, this is for the novel. This is for the novel, right? All right. Now, Harry says it's the first time that they've tried running a holodeck program nonstop. But just them, though? Just them on Voyager? Because surely, once the holodeck got invented, surely others have done that. And by the way, you already have a case study. You have your EMH. He's right there. Maybe tap into him as a resource a little bit. Also, remember the Killing Game running weeks that thing was running.
Yeah, for real. And they'd expanded it. And this brings up a question I have about all of that is, does Voyager's holodeck have modifications still left from when the Herosian were going to town with their holodeck? And I mean, not that that's helped them at all in this situation. I mean, did that help, or did it make it worse, though? I don't know.
That is an interesting idea, because you could almost retcon this whole thing that by the Herosian being there and doing what they did, from that point on, there is something wrong with the holodeck.
That would be really interesting. And then so through so much overuse, and then just the broken or the burnt out holo emitters are just a symptom of that much larger problem that's about to explode.
Right.
Yeah. I do have a question. Okay. Didn't Neelix propose the open door policy, though, for Fairhaven? Because Tom's getting the credit.
He did. You're so right.
Okay.
Tom.
I'm just saying, Tom's a jerk.
No. Tom, speak up. Say, oh, no, that was Neelix.
He didn't. Jerk.
There's a moment on the bridge, Janeway says, I've got a boyfriend who malfunctions. So, okay, look. So she's joking, but she's joking on the square. Okay?
Yeah.
She's the one who said boyfriend. She's not responding to somebody saying boyfriend. What do you make of that?
What's the better line? Delete the wife, or I've got a boyfriend who malfunctions? She went there.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised by that. And I mean, Janeway, hey, don't hold it against him. It could happen to any guy.
Ouch. Okay, something that makes no sense. Tom and Harry have to sneak into the pub while the program and everything in it is running. I mean,
Yeah.
The holodeck computer exists in the real world. Like, it doesn't only exist in the pub. So they could just freeze a program, or they could do what we always saw in Next Gen, like they're outside of the corridor, like pulling linear chips out of the wall. You know, maybe.
Why? Yeah, they're not doing that simply because the story demands it, so that they become prisoners. I'm sorry, but it is dumb. It looks dumb. It's dumb on paper. It is dumb.
Yeah.
One possibly interesting thing that we learn here is that holo characters have a perceptual filter algorithm that keeps them oblivious, usually, to what's happening around them, that they don't recognize, oh, these are Starfleet officers. Because on TNG, I think a lot of us question that, like, why aren't they, if you're in uniform, asking you, hey, what is this costume?
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. This whole situation just has red flags everywhere. The big question being, why the heck didn't they shut down the program completely, if not at this point? Okay, it's obvious that a quick fix is not going to work. The problem is far bigger than that. And I'm sorry, but Voyager has how many other holodeck programs on file?
Right.
You don't have to have Fairhaven running. The crew will deal. I promise.
Yeah. They could all hang out with Captain Proton.
Captain Proton, we could reopen Sandrine's, Club Bromet is still available. All the other programs that they have that we haven't heard about.
Right.
Come on.
I do like this path that you're going down. I mean, this would make for a really interesting conversation one day about holodecks and how they work or don't. But that whole thing about the perceptual filter, because, in my head, the character is just interacting with you because they know to interact with you. And in the characters, and I say head, I mean, they don't have a brain, but the program is responding whether you're a human or a Klingon, whether you're in uniform or in the clothes of the simulation. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's not that they're NPCs, but they, quote unquote, understand your context in the game.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very selective, but they are programmed to understand what they need to understand.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah. So it seems like you don't actually need a filter to do that. That's just the default mode. You know? Yeah. Anyway.
Algorithms are hard, man.
They are, certainly. And they're ruining our lives. I love Michael Sullivan's mixed feelings, that he is freaked out by what he has experienced, but he also doesn't want to see his fellow townsfolk overreact and get violent. Like, he's playing some wonderful stuff. So tip of the hat to Fenton McKeon. But I'm sorry, a computer that generated a holographic shotgun should not also be damaged by that same holographic shotgun. That is bad design.
Yeah, that is.
See also, you should be able to reprogram everything from outside.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because earlier in the episode, they go to the effort of mentioning that the safeties were on. So I guess we have to assume that's no longer the case.
Uh-huh.
And we also question that in Fairhaven, too, at the bar fight.
Oh, right.
So
people got beat up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just terrible hologram technology.
I love the freeze effect, though, when the 62% compliance.
It's very specific, yeah.
It is very, but I love some people are kind of fading in and out,
Yeah,
stuff.
I do like that effect too. It looked cool.
Yeah,
and it reminded me of Doc's line in Basics Part 2, where he was talking about, what am I supposed to do to retake Voyager? Have a revolt with the gang from Sandrine's or something like that? And I thought, this is probably as close to a scene of that as we'll ever see. Here it is.
Yes, yes. And speaking of the Doctor and his ability, his level of agency here, Seven says they're not people, they're holograms, and she's standing right in front of the Doctor, and he just lets it slide?
Yeah,
No.
I guess this week he does.
I guess so.
Yeah.
He should really be front and center throughout this whole thing. Yeah.
Well, honestly, yeah, it's a hologram-centric episode. What the...
Yeah.
I don't know. I just gotta say, thank goodness for B'Elanna in this episode. She is the one and only person who's really speaking plain truth throughout this whole episode.
Yes.
Maybe aside from Seven, who's being very direct and logical, but B'Elanna is saying throughout the episode more than once, pull the plug and do it now. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Why is nobody listening to her?
Right.
Because Janeway wants to, have her cake and eat it too, I guess. And so, of course, it's all going to go horribly wrong because we need a story. But B'Elanna is right. This is a holodeck program. Shut it down.
Pull the plug. That's what you do.
It could have been that simple.
But since they didn't, we end up back in the church, and I got to say the interrogations are hilarious.
I do like that, yeah.
They are darkly hilarious. And look, I'm going to have a lot to say about the relative merits of this episode, but the idea of a self-aware holographic 19th century barkeep loose on Voyager once, he's walking around with the holo emitter. That's just a great idea. I would like to see him just join the crew the same way that the Doctor is part of the crew.
Hey, I mean, this could have been a variation of Moriarty, and just with him being the barkeep, he can bring Janeway coffee and just basically be an extension of Neelix in the mess hall, offering support and services for folks if you're stuck out on the bridge during a crisis. He can make sure everybody's okay and taken care of. That could be great.
I love that idea.
Oh, that'd be so much fun. Now, one thing that I was grateful for in this episode was the fact that Seamus translated the Latin the moment after he said it, because my Latin's pretty rusty. I got a couple of the words strung together, but I was grateful that he just spelled it out for me. How about you?
Yeah, well, of course. Anytime a character can just spell it out for me, we're good, especially Latin. All right, now, Janeway, if the good people of Fairhaven are going to burn your crew, seriously, listen to B'Elanna, like Shar said, pull the plug. Michael would understand. Plus, you can remake him. Right? They saved part of the program last time. You can save it again. Yeah.
In this respect, maybe having a holographic boyfriend is convenient.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of, holograms can be hypnotized? Really?
That was a bit of a stretch. But I guess, you really have to do the mental gymnastics. Say, okay, they took away the holo emitter, so the Doctor becomes part of the holodeck, but at that point, is it just because the holodeck is malfunctioning that the Doctor is malfunctioning? He just becomes part of the story. It's a lot. It's a long way to go to get there, yeah. And then, if we haven't shoehorned a bunch of stereotypes into Fairhaven already, just follow the rainbow to the pot of gold. Really? Yeah.
I'd say this episode leans even harder into the Irish stereotypes than Fairhaven, and that's not a good thing.
We did not think that was even mathematically possible.
We'll get right back to Spirit Folk after a word from this week's sponsor, ExpressVPN.
The problem with huge tech companies, well, maybe there's more than one problem, but here's the problem I'll focus on right now. They don't just want your money. They want to know everything about you. Data brokers make a living compiling detailed profiles of your online activity and selling them to marketers and other corporate interests that want to control you with targeted ads. They're not selling a product, they are selling you.
And that's absolutely right. And the worst part, it's not just some shadowy villain, twirling their mustache. They're massive tech companies tracking everything that we do online.
And that is why we use ExpressVPN. It's a simple app that runs in the background, hiding our IP addresses and encrypting data so that no one, not hackers, not data brokers, and not even my internet provider can see what I'm doing.
And that's exactly what we want, because let's be real here. I mean, even if you're not looking up the schematics for, I don't know, the Genesis device.
Genesis.
You still don't Genesis. You still don't want your personal information getting scooped up and then, sold to a genetic Superman.
Exactly. Now, ExpressVPN makes it ridiculously easy to protect yourself. Just one tap on your phone, your laptop, your tablet, whatever you're using, boom, you are protected. There's no complicated setup, no fuss. And, we've said it before a lot, but for example, I love to travel, and I find myself very often, whether it's in an airport or a hotel or just some public space, and I need to connect, and particularly when I need to connect for sensitive data, like opening up my bank app or making a credit card payment, something like that, I absolutely turn to ExpressVPN. Open the app, hit the button, boom, I'm connected. I feel safe.
I mean, who doesn't love that? That's the ease of use, the one tap, and then you're secure. I mean, if you'd rather keep your browsing history your business and not let some faceless mustachio-twirling corporation, unless the Romulans have mustaches like the Tal Shiar should have mustaches, then you need ExpressVPN.
So protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/missionlog.
That's EXPRESSVPN.com/missionlog, and you can get an extra 4 months free.
One more time, that's expressvpn.com/missionlog, because some things should stay private, like your data and whatever deep dive into Trek lore you're doing at 2 a.m., like me or Norman.
It's not that Tom Paris can't drive 55. This episode makes it look like he can't drive 5 either.
All right, Shar, I think you and I have many thoughts and questions about not just the character interactions, the psychology, perhaps, of what's going on between our real characters and our holographic characters, but I think we also have some technical questions about this episode, no?
That's the impression I get, yes, is we've both got a lot of questions.
Okay.
One of the questions I have is, genuinely, is Fairhaven a good use of Voyager's resources? Because aren't they supposed to be limited? Yes, let's not even touch on how the holodeck has its own power supply and how that can or cannot be exchanged with the rest of the ship's power, depending on the plot. Fairhaven. Seriously, though, running the holodeck 24/7, that has got to be using a lot of power from some supply somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you have additional energy costs. Things like replacing the broken holo emitters, replicating flowers for a date, and not to mention that, like, the period-appropriate costumes, those are likely replicated and done so en masse, if we are to believe that the crew loves this program as much as we're told that they do. So we have seen this ship actually run out of power because it didn't have enough resources to keep going. And this show, way back when, started with heavy conservation mindsets, because this is on it's like one ship on a very long journey home. And of course, over time, this has wavered at the speed of plot. And that's something that bothers me so much during Voyager's run. Because even if the supplies are plentiful at times, wouldn't you keep conserving anyway, just because you don't know when the next resupply is going to be available? I mean, this is unknown to Starfleet space, and it's still a long way home, even though they have made a lot of tracks. So
I think what you're saying, man, I'm seeing so many angles on this, and even if you give them that in the reality of the show, that they we have to have some sort of recreational outlet for our crew. Great. Okay, that's a given. Good.
Yeah.
And we have this really cool thing that does it, and we'll even give you that the power supply is separate. Okay, makes sense, because whatever reason, sure it is.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But like you just pointed out, it also consumes resources from potentially other parts of the ship. And if things were really scarce on board, I'm telling you, B'Elanna or any other, who is the engineer who got punched in the face
Carey.
early on? Carey, of course, Lieutenant Carey. all of these people who work in engineering, people who are very smart on board, I'm sure that they would figure out many and multitude of ways to lift some of the technology and power supply out of the holodeck to, I don't know, hook up to replicators when people need to eat.
Yeah.
And you could even do some interesting plot stuff where you say, hey, we're doing this for a while. We have to pull this machinery. We have to pull these power supplies to do these particular things right now. Oh, look, we just came across a planet where we can resupply. We can do these other things. Like, honestly, and I hate to put on the writer's hat here, but I will. Remember, there were times that we saw the aeroponics bay.
Yes.
There were times that we saw other parts of the ship, and I would love to go back there, or I'd love to see moments in Voyager's journey home where, like, everything is full of supplies because they were able to get things from, like, have you ever seen those shots, and it's not even just old war footage, but even now, when a submarine goes out to sea and they pack for like weeks and months.
Yeah.
And literally every corner of that place is filled with stuff. And these sailors are going to be disconnected from the rest of the world for a while. So they're eating through that, so getting their space back.
Right.
Right? But then they got to go resupply again. And I'd kind of like to see Voyager hit with some problems every now and then.
Yes. Oh, I'd love to see that fluctuation where when supplies are plentiful, maybe you've got a couple extra hours allocated for your holodeck time or something like that. Or you can replicate a fancier dinner or something to that effect to show that these are the good times. And then when things get bad, we're on strict rationing. You only get ration pack number 3 and only twice a day, that sort of thing. They started off like that,
cool.
but totally forgot about it, I think, when Kes left the show, honestly. The aeroponics bay, has there been a mention once?
Nope. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, there has been a mention, yeah. But I think... So here's my other... this is sort of the, like, metaphysical concern of it all, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have all this stuff going on in this episode. If this episode is to be trusted about the reality of how the holodeck works, which when it's running 24/7, right?
Yeah.
You have all this stuff going on between holodeck characters when the Voyager crew are not around. Okay, so there might be some unnamed, like I do like the fact that Michael acknowledges a couple of characters who we don't really know, but they're just walking down the hallway and he's like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so and his cousin, and they come into the pub. Cool, that's all we need to know is that other people are using Fairhaven, right?
Yeah.
But those people are maybe somewhere else. The program is still running, and the characters are still talking to each other about things like black magic and fairies and all these other things. Why is that happening? Now, I know that we have a hand-waving explanation for it, but seriously, even if the program is running all the time, are all the characters also running all the time? And are they all talking to each other? And are they making inferences from each other about what's going on? Because it seems like one of the basic things about a holodeck program is that the characters only know their reality and really nothing else. And I know we get to the point where the reality, the awareness filter is turned off, you know. But the point is that they wouldn't be suspicious of others, those players like our Voyager crew, because they are supposed to be there based on the way that these things work, you know. So I don't think I can really make any of that make sense, except for maybe like the Moriarty explanation, which is that the computer created a worthwhile, worthy opponent for Janeway, a romantic opponent. I mean, an opponent, losing the term loosely here, the same way that the computer created a worthy opponent for Data. But that doesn't answer about everybody else in the simulation. That only answers for Michael.
Right.
Because, again, they're sitting there talking to each other, and I just go, okay, there's no Voyager crew member there. This is Voyager's computer, at least the program that runs the holodeck, talking to itself, working out a problem.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
How do we explain this, given the context of what we have?
It's sort of like if you have two ChatGPT bots conversing with one another, and we all see how that devolves into just the worst, most horrible arguments. Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe this is the better outcome, where I think this is a part of what they're going for, is the Moriarty kind of element where they have extended beyond that of a normal holo program. And then they're also melding that with the morals, meanings, and messages of TNG's Who Watches the Watchers, which we'll have to discuss a little bit later.
Yes.
And adding a little bit like an alien abduction / conspiracy theory twist, which I can't wait to talk about.
All of those are good. They're good fodder for the story to have these characters try to work out. Like, in this case, the holodeck characters, they are the aliens. They are the proto-Vulcans from Who Watches the Watchers, But it's just, there's an extra level of weirdness here because it's our computer.
Yes.
It's the one that we, Tom, it said everybody else on the crew programmed. And it already works within certain guidelines, within certain sort of constraints, right? And we didn't really get to the point of saying, well, here's how and why they broke out of that. And here's why the computer is now 24/7 talking to itself about these other characters. Like, that's just strange. But it is potentially a deep dive that, you could do in a novel, or you could do in something else that really gets into, okay, what is the consciousness of the holodeck? Because we buy it for the Doctor.
Yeah.
The Doctor has some level of sentience. Even if we can't, quote unquote, prove it, we can experience something like it with him.
Yeah. I don't know. That's the way it's supposed to be, though, for holograms.
Right.
The Doctor's supposed to be that one exception. And he is patient zero as far as like running for so many hours. Though, how many times have we seen problems arise with him where he's put too much into his program, or his program's been abducted, that sort of a thing?
And I'm telling you, as soon as somebody at Starfleet R&D came up with a holodeck that worked, they left that thing running. Because they were like, what happens next? And then what happens next? And then what happens next? So we can kind of assume from this that if you program a holodeck in just such a way and you leave it running for just so long, you end up with sentience or at least something that is indistinguishable from sentience.
Right.
And maybe you make an argument, okay, well, Seamus is just kind of very limited, but Michael Sullivan is not.
Yeah.
So, like you said, we already have the Doctor. He is the case study. So this whole thing, it shouldn't be a totally foreign concept to anybody on Voyager. But if this is a thing that happens and happens regularly, Starfleet would really have a problem.
Well, and I'm sorry, but how has Reg Barkley not uncovered this on his own? The self-proclaimed holodeck addict. Legit question. I mean, if anybody would discover this, it would be him, and he has the engineering prowess to possibly do like some real research and see what sort of, like, at what point does a holoprogram's usage limit, what's the line between things being just kind of standard issue and sentience?
Right. Well, and that's the problem because, we try to answer that with data in The Measure of a Man. And the line is our reaction. There is no line that you can specifically say in black and white, well, this thing is, this thing isn't. It's sort of like the problem of a pile of sand. If I start putting grains of sand together, at what point does that become a pile of sand? And if I take away one grain, is it still a pile of sand? There is no demarcation. There's just the perception.
Yeah. Oh, good call. Good call.
What else you got for us?
I mentioned B'Elanna earlier, and if I were her in this episode, I would seriously just be so cranky with everyone for not listening to her, but especially Tom. Because let's look at the timeline here. He rebuilt Fairhaven, apparently, which no doubt took away quality time with her, since she doesn't seem to be into this program.
Yeah.
She's creating problems for him by blowing up the holo emitters from overuse. And then now it's all gone awry, and it's put people in danger. And I hope she really gave him a big talking to, because she's the only one who's saying the clear-cut answer to this problem: shut this thing down. And I repeat, why is nobody listening to her? please remind me why these
Not
two
even
are
the
together.
captain.
Is it a love-hate thing?
Yeah.
What's really the driving force here? I know Norm has problems too with this relationship, and in this watch of Voyager, it just seems less and less like these two don't even like each other. What are they doing? So I have got a little theory on maybe why Fairhaven just totally threw up on itself.
Ooh,
and it's all Tom's fault.
Of course. How can it not be?
Yeah, so timeline-wise, we have 6 weeks, and he said it was going to take 6 to 7. I think what he did was a rush job. How diligent might he have been about, say, filtering corruption through damaged files in this program? I mean, he was already dealing with a challenging situation to begin with. And this episode wants to blame the overuse of the holodeck for why things went wonky, but I don't know. I'm thinking Tom has at least something to do with this. With the way that he's written in this episode, it wouldn't surprise me if he worked as quickly as he could to get Fairhaven back online. He's just so obsessed. And he made it look good. But then, under the hood, there's problems he wasn't checking for. He was working with those damaged files, and that's problematic in and of itself. I mean, with what programming I have done in my job, I understand how easy it is for one little misstep to cause a whole program error. And the more complex the program, the greater the difficulty in squashing the bugs causing the problem. And since holographic technology is incredibly complex, a rush job is going to create a hot mess like this. Fixing it's going to take a lot more time than it would have taken to have just started probably from scratch and done it right in the first place. So I'm blaming Tom for shoddy work.
I think that, first of all, I think there is blame to spread around for enough people. Janeway did not pull the plug every time, and every time that B'Elanna said it, Janeway could have given the order, pull the plug, and she didn't. I do think that Tom did a shoddy job. Harry apparently is our boy wonder holodeck or a holo character programmer, but he's not really a part of this.
No, he's busy swooning.
Which is... It's so much swooning that he has to do.
Apparently.
And I think a good captain would also just say, hey, look, we're just going to run this thing 2 hours a day for each shift.
Seriously, what is going on with Janeway here?
Yeah, because if B'Elanna says, hey, you're blowing out holo emitters, and Janeway's got to say, yeah, we need to put the brakes on this until such time that we could run it after the program is perfected, Tom.
Yeah.
Is on you. Janeway says, when she is replying to this idea about shutting them down, the people of Fairhaven may not be real, but our feelings toward them are. Mm-hmm. So says Janeway. Okay, but seriously? Because B'Elanna, and I know I'm just piggybacking on what you said, but really, B'Elanna is stating the obvious. Pull the plug.
Yeah.
It's a computer program.
Come on.
It can be rewritten. Part of it is already saved. It seriously sounds like a time when the captain should be relieved of duty because she's got crew members who are in danger.
Thank you.
And she's not doing what she needs to do to get them out of it.
Yeah. I really have to question, is Janeway's relationship with Michael clouding her judgment here? Because since when does she allow anything, much less a holodeck program, put her crew at risk like this?
Right.
I mean...
Yeah.
Season 3 Janeway, Mama Bear Janeway, any of her crew are in danger, she's busting it out and breaking out the compression phaser rifles.
Yeah, right.
I think maybe the very same reason why she wouldn't let herself have a relationship with a member of her crew, Chakotay, the very thing is that's what's landing her in this trouble right now. So the hologram romance... not saving her from that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, there is a cool kind of element of this story, and that's what made this episode really fun to dig around in. And I think that there's really good stuff where Janeway finally tells Michael the truth.
Yes.
That's where the Who Watches the Watchers comes in, because she's explaining her life to Michael the way Picard explained to Nuria what things are like. And basically it's, you boil it down to that saying of science is magic you don't understand. And it's like us explaining rocket ships to someone in Shakespearean times, or even aliens explaining what their lives are like as opposed to ours. And this episode does touch on a little bit of an alien abduction vibe, too, like when the residents of Fairhaven are talking. I love that, where they're piecing together what knowledge they do have, but without full context. And then basically they're just forming their own conspiracy theory, right?
Yeah.
What information they do have, pieces together, it makes sense to them, but it's only some of the facts. And that is an interesting thing to look at. It's really subtle in this episode. It's not even really what this episode is about, but it's terribly interesting. I so wish that they would have expanded on that. And I wish they would have expanded on the potential this episode had for Janeway and Michael, because this is where their respective worlds converge. And this could have been an evolution in their relationship, potentially giving the episode a hell of a lot more meaning in the long run. So, I mean, had something like that developed and happened, maybe we'd be having a very different conversation about this episode and or Fairhaven, all of it. We'd be chewing on some excellent concepts, but I'm sorry, there just isn't enough of that here.
Well, I think we figure out what is the here when we get to the next segment.
Hey!
There will be no kissing of the Blarney Stone in this podcast. Kissing of the cow, however, is permissible.
All right, Char, you created the perfect segue because we were just rushing headlong into morals, meanings, messages, and cool ideas that we picked up from this episode. So without further ado, we've arrived here at the end where we get to ask each other if the episode held up and if we learned anything in the process. So, Char, does Spirit Folk hold up?
Well, I hope that's not too much of a giveaway.
Okay, no, that's fine. You can expand on that.
First off, I don't think anybody was screaming for a Fairhaven sequel, but here we are. Mm-hmm. And so if our writers are going here, wouldn't you think they would want to jump on this only if they had some kind of really great, powerful idea, some sort of really impactful thing that happens to the crew? Because that would have justified the extra costs that I have to assume are associated with going back to Universal and like hiring crew to handle cows on set, for crying out loud, and stuff like that. And the story potential certainly could have happened, like with Janeway, like I just said a moment ago, but the episode just doesn't get there.
Yeah.
And I think it's because Spirit Folk is basically a watered-down mash of the holodeck malfunction trope, TNG's Moriarty, and Who Watches the Watchers, plus a little bit of alien abduction for good measure. And the end result just kind of makes our crew look foolish trying to save this failing program. And I don't see any of our characters really learning or growing from this experience. The episode just doesn't touch on that. So, like, this episode has a very, there was an attempt feel to it. Fairhaven had more going for it as an episode, and I said that didn't hold up. So, as a successor to that episode, it stands to reason that this episode also doesn't hold up. How about you?
That is all fair. Yeah, that is all fair. You mentioned a moment in the last segment that I think we both really responded to, and that is the time that Janeway finally comes clean with Michael, lets him know what's going on. And I love that moment of storytelling, especially in sci-fi, this confessional thing. Janeway spills the beans, and if you think about other scenes that are really effective like that, there's Doc Brown in Back to the Future 3 in the bar. They think he's drunk, but he's not. And he's telling everything about the future, right?
Yeah.
There's Nick Meyer's Time After Time, where finally H.G. Wells has to say who he is and that he is from the past and here's why he's here. And we're pulling for that character because we're on their side, but we are all, the quote-unquote normal character is also our proxy to sort of get engaged with the story, because that would actually be us. You know?
Yeah.
Not the one who's spilling the fantastical tale, you know? So I really respond to scenes like that when they're well done. This one was well done in that respect. I also need to preface this by saying that I wrote down my initial reaction after I had watched this one time. Then, of course, I went back and watched it a couple of more times to take more detailed notes and really get into the story a bit.
Yeah.
And my initial reaction after the first time watching it was, oh dear.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to like this little light romp on the holodeck. And I want to see our characters out of uniform just doing normal fun stuff. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I think Star Trek needs more of that kind of thing rather than every episode or every series or every movie being about the ultimate destruction of the galaxy. Like, it can't all be that. We need to stop every now and then, catch our breaths, and actually enjoy, like, why we're here, which is we get to do cool things with each other, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm on the same page as you, though, that the setup in Fairhaven was far more provocative than the follow-up here in Spirit Folk. So we were teased with this idea that Janeway was having seriously conflicted feelings about a holographic character. And the Doctor had to step in and offer some words of advice. And then we even were left with this question about the captain's need for a romantic life or any life outside of her duties.
Yeah.
And we had the setup to something really thoughtful, and then we got this. Okay, but to its credit, the thing that Spirit Folk actually explores is that, okay, you found the fun here too. It upends this old alien abduction trope. You know, here's Michael thinking that he's real, and he's being taken into a lab and examined by the Spirit Folk. And I really like this kind of Salem witch trial stroke McCarthy hearings vibe that we get from the Fairhaven population taking it out on Tom and Harry, and they're fighting over the morals with each other. So that is a satisfying idea to explore, but it's not enough. So if that were really going to be the heart of the show, then I feel like we would have gotten there sooner and we would have stuck with it. But this didn't gel as an episode. However, because those ideas are still there in some form, I can't say that this is an episode that holds up, but I will be a little less harsh. I will say that in not holding up, it at least is sort of a gentle not holding up.
Okay.
You know? I'm not angry at this episode the way that I might be at some. I just feel like, okay, you had ideas, you tried, but you sort of wasted what was most interesting here. And thank goodness we're not going back there. But boy, if you had actually spent the time and the effort to make these two little excursions into Fairhaven really meaningful, then we could have come across with something that was great. It could have been one of the all-time great holodeck episodes.
Yeah. This is a recurring problem for Voyager is they have the kernels of great ideas and then develop them about halfway so they can fit it into 43 minutes, and it just doesn't hit the mark.
Right. But you had two of those. We had two of those. So
that's just it. They doubled down on this one.
86 minutes that we could have spent in this place doing something really interesting. But we didn't quite. We got great moments, but we didn't get great episodes.
Agreed.
And that's too bad. But cool ideas to think about, even if the show didn't think about them thoroughly. There is the line at the end here, just because we're from different worlds doesn't mean we can't care for each other. Lovely, wonderful. Yes. At its heart, a core Star Trek message, a core value here, which is awesome. And there is a message here that maybe it's not the exact one that I would land on, but it works. And you mentioned Who Watches the Watchers, which is one of my all-time favorites. And maybe I wanted it to tip a little more to Who Watches the Watchers.
Yeah.
But go with me here. All right. The people of Fairhaven are convinced of the dangers of things that they don't understand. And remember, as Kirk said, there is no unknown, only things temporarily hidden, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes our crew to get them to be more tolerant and more accepting. And maybe that's all we can really expect of them, since they are, by programming, they're kind of stuck in this late 19th, early 20th century Irish town, right? Mm-hmm. They can't escape that. They can't go anywhere from that. You're not going to come back in 3 weeks and suddenly it'll be, the 1980s, or they'll all be on the internet, or they'll be in rockets or whatever. That's not going to happen, right? By design. So maybe what I really wanted, I wanted the counter argument to the 19th century witch trial, which was going on in the church. I wanted a character like Janeway to have a conversation about reason and science and stepping past the superstition. So we got there a little bit because we got to the point where we can say, look, we're different, but we can be friends. Not going to denigrate that. That is crucial, right? But I wanted that next step that says, hey, you're different and we're different in this fundamental way, but we can actually kind of help you to understand who we are. And this is going to blow your mind. So maybe that isn't the story that we were going to tell here. It's not quite that Who Watches the Watchers thing, but this is the holodeck. So I get to have my own fantasy here, too, about how the story plays out.
Yeah, I like your version.
Well, thank you. So what about you, Shar? What did you find?
You know, here's the real kicker about this episode is it really does have morals, meanings, and messages in it.
Yeah.
And even though I said it doesn't hold up, I mean, it does have that in it. And so I love the line that you quoted about being from different worlds doesn't mean we can't be friends. That's a very Starfleet message.
Oh, yeah.
So that's solid. I think the whole science is magic, you don't understand message is good, but it was done more concisely in Who Watches the Watchers, and I think it hits better there. I mean, basically, the good stuff in this episode has all been done before and done better. So I think this episode's ultimate failing is that if you're going to give us things that we have seen before, expand on the ideas that it's borrowing from, and it didn't do that here. And that is what makes the overall result weak. It doesn't capitalize on any other aspects either, though. Like, it could have gone just for really high entertainment value, kind of like Captain Proton or like Macrocosm, which is an action thriller. And it's a great time. But, it could have gone a really heavily comedic element. It doesn't do any of that stuff either.
Right.
And it doesn't really do anything that could have helped it stand out and ultimately save it. So... kind of like the Doctor's sermon, there's a good, feel-good, happy message here. It is there. Just don't look too closely or ask any questions, though.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog for early access to shows and the Mission Log Discord. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and for more Star Trek news and discussion, visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, Ashes to Ashes.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers, Matt Esposito, Homer Frizzell, Chris Garris, Rand Hurl, Tom Kozak, Julie Miller, Mike Richards, Mike Shabel, Paul Shadwell, and David Takachi. The guts of the holodeck computer could also be found inside the program of Club Bromed. The real advantage to Fairhaven? Not dealing with the smell of sunscreen. End transmission.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.